to Manny's TV Talk, where we will talk about all of our favorite reality TV shows and news surrounding them. Grab a snack, a drink, and get comfortable because this starts now.
Hey guys, welcome into the building. So today we're talking about the new episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta. That's season 15, episode 5. You guys, another week, another boring episode. I never thought in my life I would be saying this, especially because I thought this season was going to be the best. But I was wrong. But let's just talk about it. So we begin right where we left off last week. The beginning was actually a little bit more interesting. So the girls, remember, they got kicked out of that place that Kenya took them. They were back at the hotel, confused as to what the hell they were doing there. Kenya locked herself in the room, and Marlo was kicking the door, and Kenya explodes on her. So we pick up, and Marlo is saying that she feels that Kenya is being very disrespectful for not wanting to essentially work, film. Kenya has Brooklyn in there. And I think that by now we know that children shouldn't be at housewife trips. I mean, I just don't think it ever works out. And this is an example. So as they're leaving Kenya's room or the door, Monyetta starts to catch an attitude with Marlo and says, I'm a grown woman. I can do whatever I want. And she starts sticking up for Kenya. And as they're walking down like some hallway, Marlo, who's in front, gets the door and slams it back with Monyetta being behind her. So she was like clearly, smashing the door behind Marlo, slapping it in her face. Marlo, that was very Zeus network of you to do. But they're in the lobby. Marlo goes outside with Courtney, and Monyetta stays inside and with the others and calls Kenya on the phone to tell her what Marlo just did. But Kenya starts telling her, I told you that she's a snake. Why are y'all knocking my door when my daughter is in here? But Kenya, I'm pretty sure that screaming at the top of your lungs and cussing and threatening to call the police was a little bit more scarier than the door kicking. Come on. But during the call, Sanya gets the phone and asks Kenya, what is happening? Like, what is the plan? What are we doing here? And Kenya says, honestly, you can just leave. So Kenya says, okay, cool, deuces, and leaves because they actually rolled back the footage of last season. And Kenya was so demanding of Sanya when they were in that trip to Jamaica because they showed where Kenya was saying, you haven't checked on us, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. And I think this just proves that Kenya cannot host a trip to save her life. Then Monyetta starts telling Shereé that, Pookie and him gonna come and she'll snap at Marlo. It really was not that serious at the end of the day to be calling Pookie and him. But in the lobby, Sanya comes out with her luggage and leaves. Honestly, good, because I feel like we all would have done that if we were at a trip to support someone, and when we asked them about it, they said, you can just not come. We would have left. We see a few seconds of Drew back home. She's sick. And then we also see some of Kandi with her husband. Todd is showing her some of the projects he's working on. His next movie is called The Pass, and it's about couples giving each other a pass to do it with other people. Essentially, Hall Pass, which is already a movie, but I'm not surprised that's his idea. I mean, that's the only thing these two like, apparently. But they also talk about Kandi's mom. Just when you thought this problem was over in season 6, it's not. Todd is still upset about what was said at BravoCon. But going back to Birmingham, it's the next day. Courtney FaceTimes Drew. Marlo FaceTimes her life coach because she doesn't want Kenya to trigger her anymore. Kenya really triggers Marlo. But then, guess what happens, y'all? Kenya is now too sick to film, and she has to go on an ambulance because she feels dizzy. So basically, Liam McSweeney 2.0. If you know, you know. Anyway, Shereé is next to her, so she sees everything and calls the women and tell them all what happens and that Kenya is at the hospital. And they FaceTime her to see how she is. And, seeing a hospital bed really triggered Monyetta because her mom just passed away and she starts crying like all of a sudden, and it was really sad. She couldn't hold it in. It was so emotional for her. I felt so bad. But it was nice that Marlo was there to, give her tissue, and she took that moment to apologize for last night, and they hug it out. A little later, they're all in the lobby. Marlo was going to send flowers to the hospital. Turns out, Kenya was already discharged. What a coincidence. But in that moment, so it's Marlo, Courtney, Shereé, and Monyetta, and they're all getting along. It's nice. Monyetta even dances a little bit, and Shereé asks Monyetta, can it be possible for you to be cool with us when you're with your other friends, when they're around, aka Kenya and Kandi? And she says, as long as y'all are not trying to fight them. Which I agree with that, because I'm not going to be friends with my friend's enemy, but at the same time, especially when it comes to a show like this, you can't judge someone based on how your friend judges them. You need to experience things with them and build your perception like that. Because if you have this preconceived notion, you're never going to get to fully know them. But as they're leaving this disastrous, low-budget trip, Marlo is outside with Shereé and Courtney. Monyetta was still inside getting something, and she says, yeah, you guys, when the group reunites, Monyetta's not going to be the same with us. And she may be right. But now they're all back in Atlanta. We see some brief scenes of the women. Sanya and Courtney were at the store talking about the trip. Sanya says that she needs to have, energy be reciprocated, which is why she left. Then Shereé goes over to Kenya's house. Kenya was giving Vicky Gunvalson. No, but in all seriousness, I do think she was sick because she did miss the football game, which was the most important thing to her. But then they talk about Marlo, but Brooklyn storms in, and that was such an adorable moment. I love seeing that side of Kenya. I think it's the best side of her. And then Shereé talks about the fibroid issue that she has, and she really doesn't want to get a surgery. And she even pranks Kenya that she's expecting, and for half a second, Kenya fell for it. It was hilarious. Then we see Kandi and Joyce. Kandi confronts her mom on the things that she said at BravoCon. And the mom says that, you know what, Todd needs to loosen up because he's asleep half the time she goes over and visits. And Kandi says that, well, maybe it's because she brings bad energy. That's a little bit harsh, but the mom may have a point. Because Todd looks boring and lazy every time I see him on the screen. But Kandi says, what do you think my kids are going to think when they hear you talking about their dad? And the mom says, well, I want to see your son be taught by his dad how to take out the trash. And then she says that when she first met Todd, he was a humble little guy, and now he's turned into George Jefferson. Anyway, Kandi brings up this idea of all of them going to therapy. I'm not even going to comment on that. I'm just going to skip to the last scene, which is Kenya. She invited Shereé and Drew. This is the first time Shereé and Drew are seeing each other since the reunion. Drew tried to hug Shereé, but she dodged that and said, it's a high five because we got an issue. So it looks like after the reunion, Drew had done an interview where she said that Shereé confiscated everything at the reunion, all the She by Shereé stuff. That was the most dumbest argument. I'm sorry, Shereé. Really, you need to move on. Your issue with Drew is not that serious. But then Messy Kenya wants to bring up what happened with Drew and Marlo. So Drew starts to explain the situation, and she does explain it how it was, but she definitely added a lot to it, and they're making it seem like Marlo was coming at her. They might as well have said that Marlo tried to jump her, because the way that they're exaggerating this, it's ridiculous. And Kenya then says that, you know what, it's really none of Marlo's business what Kandi does in her restaurants. But Kenya Moore is the last person on the planet to tell someone that they shouldn't be talking about other people's business. Okay? But again, I don't know how Drew and Marlo really stand, but that's what Drew described, so it looks like she's still not over it. But it turns out also that Courtney invited Kenya to do some activity, which actually sounds kind of fun, and I actually thought that Kenya and Courtney had a genuine organic chemistry at the Birmingham trip, so I'm hoping that they can get along. And they actually all say that they hope that from now on the group can have good energy. But you guys, we saw some previews for the next episode, and that is the episode where, if you remember in the trailer, that's where Marlo had said to Kandi, like, are you gonna cry now? And then Kandi said, the only reason I'm crying is because I can't choke your ass. That's next episode. So I'm really excited about that, because this episode was like watching paint dry. I'm sorry, but it was. So I'm glad that next week we'll get some more action. Of course, being brought to you by Marlo. But you guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. What are your thoughts about this episode? Did you get as bored as much as I did? Let me know all of those thoughts. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch y'all next time, and y'all have a great one. Bye.